All right, great. Hello, everybody. I'm State Representative Lisa Subeck. Thank you for being with us today. I just want to remind our guests and members of the press to please make sure that your microphones stay muted as not to interfere with sound quality. For those who are interested, we are also streaming live on WisconsinEye today, and this will be viewable at a later point on their website. So as I said, thank you for being here. We are here today to, I don't want to say celebrate, but commemorate we're here today to commemorate the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Wow. It is also the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, so bear with me. We're here to commemorate the anniversary of Citizens United. It has been 12 years since the Supreme Court ruled on the Citizens United decision that has allowed an influx of special interest and corporate money into politics. For those of you who aren't as familiar with this decision, the Supreme Court essentially declared that corporations are people and have the same rights as people, and that money is equal to speech, and therefore corporations can spend unlimited amounts of money to influence our elections. This created the birth of the super PAC. This opened the floodgates to big money special interest spending in our elections. This is the decision that changed the political landscape forever. And it's not too late. We can change that. We need a constitutional amendment at the federal level to make that change. An amendment that declared that corporations don't have all the same rights of people. Corporations are not people. And money is not speech would take away the megaphone that has been handed to billionaires and corporations and those who have something to gain by influencing our elections. And it would give the megaphone back to the ordinary citizen, to the ordinary person who wants to ensure that their elected officials are accountable to them. In the state capitol, we see the results of the Citizens United decision every single day. Yesterday, we were on the assembly floor. We were not dealing with the issues that are important to Wisconsinites. We were not making sure that we had access to clean drinking water. We were not ensuring that in the face of a pandemic, everybody have access to the health care that they need. We were not addressing issues of the challenges that folks are facing economically right now. We were not raising wages. We were not doing any one of the multitude of things that our voters and our residents in our state want us to do. Instead, we were increasing access to guns, passing bills that would allow guns on school grounds. Why were we doing that? Because the gun lobby, the big gun lobby, spends lots of money to influence our elections. Throughout this legislative session, we have done more giveaways to big business and ignored the small Main Street businesses that are crying out for our attention. As elected officials, we should be accountable to the people who elect us. We work for you. Instead, what we have seen is that too many elected officials are accountable to those with the biggest purses, those who can give the most money to influence our elections. Sadly, the people of Wisconsin often do not even know who is trying to influence their vote, because not only did Citizens United open the floodgates to an influx of special interest money, but Wisconsin has rolled back our already somewhat abysmal campaign finance laws to the point where dark money has overtaken our elections. Dark money is the money that you see when you see those commercials on TV and, they say this commercial is paid for by Citizens for a Better Future, or People for a Great Wisconsin, people who love dogs and cats, all things that sound wonderful. Generally, those ads, though, are paid for by people who don't want you to know who's paying for them. Big corporations, billionaires who have an interest in influencing the outcomes of the elections, not who want to influence it to do what's right for our state, but who want to influence it to do what's right for them. This has left a system where politicians are not accountable to the people. Instead, politicians are accountable to those who line the pockets, or those who line their pockets in their campaign coffers. It is time for that to change. And that is why we have seen across the state and across the nation a movement to overturn Citizens United. We have seen referendums on ballots in cities, townships, villages, and counties across the state of Wisconsin. And it doesn't matter if it's a red county, heavily Republican county, or a blue county, heavily Democratic county. Those referendums have passed overwhelmingly, saying overturn Citizens United and get big money out of politics. We have a bill that I've proposed. This is, I think, my fourth time proposing it, and one of my predecessors before me brought it forward before that. That is incredibly simple. It's a resolution that would put a measure on the ballot statewide in the next election that would ask Wisconsinites, do you want Citizens United overturned? Should we get big money out of politics? It asks whether we should direct our federal representatives to take action. It's an advisory referendum, but it would finally give the people of Wisconsin statewide a chance to make their voices heard. Unfortunately, my Republican colleagues in the legislature have stood in the way in this amendment at every juncture. I believe that we have every single Democrat on as a sponsor of it, and not a single Republican has agreed to come on board. What does that tell you? It tells you that the majority party in the state legislature is accountable to big money, is counting on big money, and doesn't care what you have to say. And that's what needs to change. So we're here today on what I wish and hope would be the last anniversary of Citizens United. Unfortunately, I don't believe it will be. Yet we will keep fighting until one day it really is that last and final anniversary. But we are here today to say we must overturn the Supreme Court's decision. This is a wrong-headed decision. It can be changed, but what it will take is a constitutional amendment. And we are here to say, at very least, let the people of Wisconsin speak. Let's listen to them. Let's hear them. Let's let their voices be heard by putting a referendum on the statewide ballot on the next election in November. It's not too late to do that. Let's make it happen. So again, I'm going to thank you for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our next speaker. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Representative Subeck. And you pointed out some very well and eloquently why we're here today. Just this week in a hearing, I heard from a Republican office as they were speaking about a bill that we're here in this building in the Capitol to do the will of the people. And I had to stop at that moment and correct them and remind them that we are not on a daily basis performing the duties of following the will of the people. You just reminded me of that, Representative Subeck. It wasn't exactly what I was going to talk about today, but it again reminded me that and I know that I don't want to embrace the cynicism of the voters out there, but the fact is real, that because of Citizens United and that dark day 12 years ago has been overshadowing our politics in this country ever since. And I can tell you personally that after a hiatus of my own in the legislature, during most of that time, I returned to the legislature to continue my career in public service for this very reason, for the reasons that you talked about, that what has happened to big money, and we need issue ad disclosure. We need all of these things to happen so people know who's paying for those ads and what those ads really mean. And so, like so many Americans, I have seen firsthand, now that I've been back into politics, how it has changed America. Americans want to engage in government and the political process, but sadly, we've reached a point where many Americans simply feel their voices don't matter. 12 years ago, the Supreme Court delivered that landmark decision in Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission. And that ruling fundamentally changed the American political landscape, asserting that corporations are people, therefore removing reasonable campaign contribution limits. The consequences of this decision have been enormous. It's allowed a small group of wealthy donors and special interests to use dark money to influence elections. Now, I join my colleagues here today, and I'm proud to join the colleagues that are here today to recognize the 12th anniversary or commemoration of the Citizens United ruling. For more than a decade now, Americans have experienced their voices being drowned out by corporate elites, and they're growing weary of that. The American politics, the political landscape altogether has really turned off a lot of people. And this is the wrong direction for our country. When we talk about our democracy at risk, it started back in 12 years ago. And you've seen January 6th, we've just commemorated the anniversary of an insurrection on our Capitol. That is one of the results of what has happened because of the big money and the lies that it is able to portray in our politics. So piles of money shouldn't prohibit the public's policies. As I said at the beginning of this, we are here for the will of the people. So on this anniversary, I'm calling on the legislature to act on Senate Resolution 61, that Representative Subeck has introduced time and again, and to give power back to the people and allow them to reclaim their voice in the political process. American citizens deserve a political system that encourages civic participation and their confidence, one that values their voice and truly reflects the will of the people. And now I'd like to turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Senator Larson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Smith, and thank you very much, Representative Subeck, for leading this commemoration today and leading the charge to lead us back into a democracy that is more representative. And right now, it's very clear, as has been mentioned on January 6th anniversary, that we just recognized that democracy is very much at risk of deterioration. I remember 12 years ago feeling very despondent when the ruling came out that took away power from people to be able to find out what was being spent in elections. When the Citizens United ruling came, in a series of rulings before that and since then that have both deteriorated our democracy and have deteriorated faith and confidence in our U.S. Supreme Court. But this one, it's worth remembering that this was something that was a blow to Russ Feingold's legacy in making sure that there was clean campaigns and that there wasn't the ability to just treat elections like auctions. This struck down what his work was, the McCain-Feingold campaign finance reform, and allowed the floodgate to open up. And so that ended up changing that. I remember exactly where I was 12 years ago. We're still trying to push back. So in the meantime, in addition to pushing for this resolution to pass, there's a package that I and Senator Smith, Representative Subeck, and other legislators have worked on. And I guess if you think of Citizens United as opening the floodgates of dark money, you can think of these pieces of legislation as the boats to survive that flood until Citizens United is reversed, or in some cases the sandbags to shore up and prevent further damage to our democracy and democratic credibility with a small d. So we have a petition, this along with 6 other bills to restore fairness and integrity to Wisconsin's campaign finance system. Collectively, these bills, which we introduced last year, are known as the Campaign Integrity Package. To date, Republican leadership has failed to give any of these bills a public hearing. But by signing the petition that we will be sharing out, we're calling on the committee chairs to give public hearings to each of these common sense bills, which will go a long way towards making Wisconsin's campaign finance system more fair, transparent, and accountable. By putting your name and address, it gets to the relevant committee members to indicate your support for these pieces of legislation. And they are, you can find out the full list and summary at the petition. But the specific bills are Campaign Contributions Limit Act, Closing the PAC Loophole Act, Coordination Control Act, No Corporate Campaign Bribes Act, Contribution Sunshine Act, Communications Transparency Act, and of course the Citizens United fix, which we're talking about more in depth through the leadership of Representative Subeck and Senator Smith. So we'd hope that folks, this is a chance to turn it around. Folks would sign that petition, which we'll be sending out. You can find at my page, my Facebook page, Senator Chris Larson, and will be shared around with the other offices. So hope that folks who are listening in will do that to push back on this. And with that, I turn it over to my friend and a leader in trying to preserve democracy and speaking truth to power, Matt Rothschild.
Thank you, Senator. And good morning. I'm Matt Rothschild, the Executive Director at the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, which since 1995 has been tracking and exposing money in politics and advocating for a broad range of pro-democracy reforms, including banning gerrymandering and putting tight limits on campaign finance. I'd like to thank Representative Subeck and Senator Smith and Senator Larson for their consistent, courageous, and visionary leadership on this crucial issue of campaign finance reform. Of course, we're here today because it's the 12th anniversary of the disastrous Citizens United case. And Citizens United is really just shorthand for a whole series of ruinous U.S. Supreme Court decisions that have allowed corporations and the super rich to dominate our political arena. So it's time to give every Wisconsinite the opportunity to weigh in on the vital question of whether we should amend the U.S. Constitution to proclaim once and for all that, corporations really aren't persons and money really isn't speech, and that the voices of regular people shouldn't be drowned out by those of the corporations and the super rich. So let's pass this joint resolution. Let's at least get a hearing for this joint resolution and for the other bills in this campaign integrity package that Senator Larson mentioned. On many vital issues today, the majority party in the legislature doesn't even want to hear from we the people in Wisconsin. That's outrageous. That's got to end. So let's have a public hearing. Let's have a vote. Citizens United essentially gave birth to the super PACs and wet nursed the huge growth in independent expenditures. Nationally, in 2020, some of the richest Americans threw obscene amounts of money around. In 2020, the top three spenders were Sheldon and Miriam Adelson, who spent $215 million. Michael Bloomberg, $98 million. Richard Uihlein, $65 million. By the way, Richard Uihlein, head of the Uihlein Corporation, is the leading super PAC donor for this year's elections, having spent $8,200,000 already, according to OpenSecrets.org. And here in Wisconsin, independent expenditures for non-federal races went up a whopping 800% in the 11 years since Citizens United. 800%. That is just an extraordinary amount. I have the exact figures, if you want them, that we've compiled at the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. From 1998 to 2009, independent expenditures in Wisconsin totaled $17 million in change. From 2010 through 2021, they totaled $138 million. These obscene, grotesque amounts of money almost totally sideline the average citizen who obviously doesn't have millions of dollars or even thousands of dollars to toss around. As a result, the political arena has become essentially a gated community, an exclusive playground for the super rich and the corporations. And that leaves us, we the people, pretty much reduced to the role of spectators, and sometimes blindfolded spectators at that, because we don't even know who's paying for all the mud that's splattering on our screens during election season. This election year, here in Wisconsin, we can expect fundraising records to be broken in the U.S. Senate race and in the race for governor with $100 million or more spent on each race. And just because Democrats in Wisconsin have figured out how to play the money game doesn't make this game any cleaner, any fairer, any more transparent, or any more participatory. In a democracy, politics shouldn't be a game played primarily by the super rich and the corporations. In a democracy, we're all supposed to be equal participants. That's what one person, one vote is all about. We're all supposed to have an equal say, and we just don't because of Citizens United and a whole bunch of bad U.S. Supreme Court decisions, and also because of the horrible rewrite of our campaign finance law here in 2015 by the Republicans in the legislature and Scott Walker. And because our voices are drowned out by the super rich and the corporations, we, the people of Wisconsin, aren't getting what we want, as Representative Subeck said so eloquently. We aren't getting what we want because of gerrymandering, and we aren't getting what we want because of Citizens United. And until we solve these two huge problems with any truthfulness whatsoever, we won't be able to claim to be living in a healthy democracy. So I want to thank you for listening to my remarks, and I'm now proud to introduce George Penn of the great group Wisconsin United to Amend.
You're muted, George.
Thank you, Beverly. I do that all the time. So I'll start again here. Thank you for inviting me to this Zoom call or the Zoom meeting. And my name is George Penn. I'm with the Wisconsin United to Amend as a volunteer, helping to build a movement to get this change that we need, an amendment. Wisconsin United to Amend started the movement to get big money out of politics less than a month after the Citizens United decision 12 years ago. We've been working fervently to show our legislators that the people of Wisconsin want the state to join 22 other states calling for the passage of the U.S. constitutional amendment to help restore our republic. To date, 166 communities in Wisconsin passed resolutions asking our legislators to call for this amendment. And so far, there's been no action on it from the ruling party. 4 communities passed our referendum with a 91% yes vote calling for this amendment, 3 of which were in majority conservative communities. Both liberal and conservative citizens want this amendment. And the average yes vote across our local referendum that we have passed is 81% yes vote. And we're working with faith communities to pass a similar resolution. Up to date, we've got 9 congregations that have passed resolutions calling for this bill, call for amendment, and we are working with other elements of the society to build this movement. As many citizens now see, our republic is in jeopardy. Getting big corporate corrupting money out of politics has never been more important. Our country is accelerating towards some kind of autocracy, and that's scary. We need other morally enlightened Wisconsin legislators to finally join these 3 courageous introducers of the bills, Subeck, Larson, and Smith, and to support these bills. Wisconsin citizens want, I would say demand, our politicians to hold a referendum across the state calling to join the other 22 states calling for this amendment to restore our republic back to sanity. I don't think we have sanity anymore. Legislators, if you're watching this or the staff of the legislators, let Wisconsinites have a voice by passing these bills and holding a referendum so that all Wisconsinites can show that they want this amendment before it's too late. Thank you. And I pass it back to, on to Lisa, Representative Lisa Subeck.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of our speakers. Something that really struck me and stood out to me after Matt spoke was he said there's 2 big things that stand in the way of ensuring that the people are put first in the state capitol. Those weren't his words, but the gist of it. And it's big money in politics, Citizens United, and it's gerrymandering. And what was striking to me about that is it's 2 really big problems, but the solutions are so simple. The solutions are clear. We can end gerrymandering today by putting into place partisan gerrymandering today by putting into place a nonpartisan redistricting process. Nonpartisan redistricting reform would answer that problem. And we could end Citizens United today through a federal constitutional amendment. It may be hard to get there, but the solutions are surprisingly simple for incredibly big problems. And I think that's important to remember, because the power is in our hands to change that. That's why we need you to sign that petition that Chris Larson has put forward. That's why we need people in Wisconsin involved and engaged. And while it feels incredibly difficult to hold your legislators accountable, remember, we must still be accountable to you. So for the people of Wisconsin, don't give up. This is the time to fight. Our democracy is in peril, and we need to work to change that. With that, I will go ahead and open it up to questions from media. I know we also have some guests on the call in addition to members of the media. I'm going to ask that any questions come only from members of the media, just in the interest of time and order, I guess, keeping things orderly on a Zoom call. So if any members of the media have questions, please use the raise hand function. We'll give you just a minute or two to do that. And Janine I'll call on you, or Janine will call on you, and we'll get you unmuted. If not, then we'll wrap up. So any questions, please raise your hands. Sorry, any Jeopardy fans out there? I always feel like this is that moment where we wait for someone to push their buzzer. All right, it looks like we don't have any questions, so I'm going to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank our speakers, members of the media. I want to thank our guests, because I know that there are so many Wisconsinites who are so passionate about this issue. And the fact that folks are getting on a Zoom meeting to listen to people talk about that, I think speaks volumes to just how important these issues are. Thank you. And with that, it's a wrap.
Thank you, everyone.
This program is a production of WisconsinEye, an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit media network with a mission to inform, educate, and engage the citizens of Wisconsin.